Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today I'm going to be going over this sweet draft. So I had this amazing draft, and unfortunately at the time I was streaming without audio, intentionally, surprisingly. We're going to take Golgari Rot Farm from this pack, by the way. My commentary at the time is Bouncelands are OP. I played Gruul Turf in an Esper deck the other day, just to kind of illustrate the point. Then here I think I say Phyrexian Mana is broken. But I know how good the commons are with the Phyrexian mana cost, so we're going to take the rare. Yeah, so I had this really, really cool draft. There was no audio at the time. I was just kind of keeping a diary in my Twitch chat here of my thoughts as I went along. I was thinking about taking Helium Squirter here just because I have Spellskite, which is bluish. But I did decide to go with this Carnarium. Starting with multiple black Bouncelands, I think is gonna just be a really cool way to start. I hadn't had any drafts go like this. I really hadn't embraced the chromatic theme of this draft format. So we'll see how it shakes out here. And then next up, I'm considering taking Valley Ranet as just more fixing. I'm considering taking Putrid Leech, Sonai Drake. Putrid Leech I think is the best card, but I decided to go with the Sonai Drake because it is pretty castable, whereas the Leech you really have to be just black and green. And then next up I get this Deathrite Shaman, which is here pretty late, I think, but I mean, I've never cast the card before, so pretty tough one for me to evaluate. And yeah, I think my thought process at the time is, I don't even know whether this is good, but kind of like the Spellskite, I'm just going to take it and find out. Spellskite I have a bit better of an idea just because, with healers, tappers, pingers, that kind of thing, there are so many more abilities in old Magic, and redirecting them is going to be pretty good. And yeah, here we have an Ostiary Thrall in the pack, which we are considering taking over Runeboggle. Runeboggle, of course, easier to get full value out of in the sense that the Thrall is going to be harder to activate than the Runeboggle is to cast. But do decide to go with the Thrall here, thinking that I can try to play a bunch of colors here, potentially end up black-white, or maybe I end up splashing white. Get a nice Dead Ringers out of this pack. It's not really competing with anything. This pick is really tough for me. We have a Frontline Sage versus the Balm Giver, or whatever that guy's called. And yeah, both pretty tiny creatures for 3 mana, but both have very strong abilities. I decided to go with the Sage just because I'm not sure what the deal is going to be with my white mana for the Thrall. If I had like a black-white bounce land, then maybe I'd be inclined to take the Balm Giver. I take a Telling Time out of the previous pack in here, just a Mortis Dogs. The Ghost Quarter is actually kind of funny because it works with Deathrite Shaman, which is not a reason to main deck it, even though it is sort of fixing. But I almost think the most important part of that pick is just hate drafting it when I have multiple bounce lands. Granted, this is a league, not a pod, so the odds of running into the other people in the draft aren't super high, but, non-negligible. It is Magic Online, after all, not something like Arena. We get a really late Seda Sanctuary as well that I'm going to see if there's any way I can play. In pack 2, pick 1, well, it's time for more bounce lands. Earlier I mentioned not having the black-white bounce land, and I guess it's not true anymore as we pick up the Basilica here. And that'll put us at 3 of the 4 black bounce lands acquired. So really good situation in terms of our land base, our mana base. Just lots of card advantage we'll be able to get off of that. And speaking of card advantage, here we're going to pick up this Pilfered Plans. So not sure exactly what the deal is going to be. I really tried to leave myself open in pack 1. And it looks like blue and black are the colors that are going to be the most open. That'll allow me to play the Looter, the Frontline Sage, as well as some gold cards from the Alara packs, the Stormblade and the Sonai Drake. So we take Pilfered Plans there. This pick is pretty interesting. Designed to speculate on this Dismantling Blow. So I already have some incentives to splash white, right? Like I have this Austere Thrall, and I did just pick up the white Bounceland, so maybe it's a little more doable now than it used to be. So yeah, we're gonna try out this Dismantling Blow. From this pack, there's really not too much going on. I don't mind Glinthawk Idol, but it really isn't suited to this kind of deck, so Fume Spitter is just an okay card, not something I'm happy to play necessarily. Good in certain matchups, to be sure. There are some decks that can have a lot of good 1/1s between, again, all the pingers, tappers, healers, that kind of thing. And then from this pack, a lot of colorless cards. Most of them are pretty bad in this format. I decide that I'm looking pretty defensive here, so I'm going to try to pick up this Darksteel Mirror. I was also a little interested in Halt Order, as I am planning on main decking that Dismantling Blow. Like, I do think that one Shatter Effect is main deckable in this format. Halt Order, though, is going to be a bit narrower and harder to cast than a Dismantling Blow, even on the splash. So here we see an Emblazoned Golem, and what a better, is there a better card to pick up with all these Bouncelands? I'm not even convinced that there is. Like, this is an excellent pickup for us from this pack. So pretty excited about that one. And then here we see a couple black flyers. Both of them would be nice. I don't love the idea of paying life in this deck, but I can't really say no to the castability of the bats. And they're just so much stronger in the late game, so I decide I'm not going to take the Emissary. Emissary being a pretty good card in the original format, the trigger can cause opponents to lose a lot of life. Here we get a nice Dross Ripper. It's just a Hill Giant with pump ability, which is quite reasonable that late in the pack. There's a Rune Boggle number 2, but this time we're going to opt for Thunderheads, I believe. I already took that Darksteel Mirror thinking that I'm going to be defensive. And so we're going to try out this funny Replicate card. A lot of the cards from the original Ravnica in the Is It Guild are some of the most whimsical magic cards, like Thunderheads in my opinion, so those are always a little bit fun. Not too much to say about the cards at the end of the pack here. And so far we're off to, I want to say a fairly profane start despite having a bunch of Bouncelands. We have, maybe some more gold cards than I normally would if you count the hybrid cards and such, but ultimately, I've managed to avoid this 5-color route that was potentially being presented to us. And here we have a Thought Career, which we're planning on taking over Cranial Plating. Plating, of course, being a pretty busted card, even when, it's not the original set, and there isn't necessarily a ton of artifact synergy. But we already have one looter in the Frontline Sage, and, well, now we have the whole set. I think at this point I say, there better be a prize for having all the black ones as we pick up Black Bounceland number 4, and that is all the color pairs with black. So really, really sick stuff coming together here. Just wait until you see how the Thought Career and Frontline Sage will play out in the matches. Just really excellent stuff to have. So here our plan is to take Serum Visions. That kind of card filtering is going to be really good for a deck like this. Passing Blind Creeper, which is good in aggressive decks, which is not this one. Etched Oracle also in the pack, but the card is just not particularly good. It's not really worth the investment in my opinion. So we did pretty well on the Alara Reborn packs previously. We got that Stormblade and Sonai Drake that we are planning to main deck, but here there's really just not much going on. You could make an argument for Backlash, but on the splash it doesn't really seem ideal. I'm already planning to play white, so I think, hey, maybe there's a chance I play Talon Trooper or something if I end up with more white fixing, but I mean, realistically, that pack is just not going to improve my deck. And then the funniest thing about this draft is we're able to potentially have Emblazoned Golem, with all 5 colors, and play Consume Spirit, which requires a ton of black mana in our deck. No Chromatic Lanterns or anything. We just we can produce the 5-color mono black mana base that we need. Okay, from this pack, we're looking at Dromar's Charm versus Volcano Imp, and the Charm is ultimately a cool looking card, not a super impactful one. We're kind of splashing the first strike ability on the Imp, so a little bit like the Ossuary Thrall, that card's going to improve because of the nature of our mana base. And we've already taken Darksteel Mirror as a very defensive 3-drop, so we're going to pick up another one. And how about a nice late Cathari, just 5 mana 3/2 flyer with a regenerate ability. At this point I say, super weird deck, I think it's good. Yeah, this is one of those decks I have shown screenshots to some people in my Discord, and some of them thought it looked kind of cool, but it's really not unless you see how this deck actually plays out, in my opinion at least, that you can fully recognize how awesome this deck is. So pack 3 winding down here, similarly to packs 1 and 2, there's not going to be much going on here for us. There's an Igneous Pouncer pretty late, but we have no reason to play a mountain, so decide to take the Illusory Demon, never know how to pronounce that word. Pick up a late Whale Denim, which is actually a card I wouldn't mind main decking. I think Whale Denim is secretly pretty good in original Mirrodin. And that Demon that we picked up late is more of a bizarre sideboard plan if things go upside down. So this is pretty much the deck, I believe. I don't really see anything in the sideboard that I ended up playing, I think. So yeah, just going to make a couple cuts. So one note about deck building here is that I probably could have just made like one cut, play 16 lands with 4 Bouncelands. I think it would have been pretty safe to do that and pretty reasonable as well, but I ended up deciding not to do that. I was thinking like, well, I really don't want to push my mana base to the limits. Like, what happens when I get openers with, like 2 Bouncelands and I have to mulligan, right? Like, there is a real cost to cutting, like, basic lands, even though it is awesome to have this many Bouncelands. So, definitely possible that I didn't set the mana base up in, like, an optimal way. I think I would probably need a lot more reps with this deck to come to that conclusion. You can see me just go through here, start clicking stuff. Pretty much everything I cut is going to end up back in there. I think Talon Trooper won't, the Demon won't, and I'm guessing, yeah, it's like everything but maybe Fume Spitter, other than those two, is going to end up making the deck. Because even though like the lands are really awesome and we have some very powerful spells, especially regarding the late game, like with Double Looter, DRS, that kind of thing, our entire deck isn't just stacked in terms of card quality, so we are going to have to settle for some Volcano Imps, Mortis Striders, that kind of thing. The Imp is actually pretty good, but the Strider, not so much. That's I would rather have, I don't know, a Grey Ogre probably. Of course, that's hindsight talking. At the time, I thought that, it's a decent blocker, potentially better than Darksteel Mirror because it blocks X1 so much better. Gotta hope that my opponents don't have Fume Spitter for my Darksteel Mirror. But yeah, I think, just added the Strider and then set up the mana base. I'm gonna make some changes between games and between matches here in terms of deck building, but this is more or less how it's going to end up. And then pretty soon we'll be able to start spectating the matches, which, that's actually the sweetest part of this one, which is pretty backwards in my opinion, but yeah, well, you'll be able to judge for yourself. So let's add some lands and hop into the games. Alright, so here we are back for round number 1. And we get to keep this nice 2-lander here, and already reaping the rewards of having a million bounce lands in the deck. And in this format, I think you want to play first in the dark, which is pretty often the case in my opinion, even in Chaos. But that's even truer here with the 4 bounce lands. We're really incentivized to play rather than draw, because bounce lands on the draw, pretty awkward. A lot of the time, that is. And so here, trying to make sure I can hit some more land drops, and fortunately we do find one there. Opponent has a 3/1 flyer in play. It can't block, so we do get to attack for a cheeky 1 exalted damage there. But we also need to figure out an answer to this 3/1 flyer. Opponent deploys Hill Giant with downside, not really where you want to be. And I start trying to figure out what the most efficient way is going to be to answer their flyer. I don't want to trade my flyer for theirs, but I do feel fine just using that Consume Spirit. So I think that's going to be what we end up doing this turn. This deck is super difficult to play, just in terms of how lands should be tapped, and like what decisions should be made while looting, because just every single like micro decision like that I have to make is going to be harder than normal. There's just so much going on with this deck. So there I chose to gain an extra life as opposed to using the Deathrite Shaman to exile a spell and make my opponent lose 2 life. I figure I should always have time for that later, unless something weird happens. Opponent makes the mistake of playing a colorless creature, which of course they don't know that I have Dead Ringers, but it's going to work out very nicely for me. I just have a ton of gas in hand. The opponent just passes. I think I even... Let's see, what do I do here? Yeah, I think it's Drake, attack for 4, and then I have my first lose 2 life activation with the Deathrite. Okay, so opponent plays Planar Despair, and I mean, it's still a 3-for-1, right? Like, they do get rid of my board here, but look at my hand. Like, we're kind of fine with this. It's not a huge deal. So they're going to lose 2 on the way out, and then here, I don't think I sequenced this correctly. I think I wanted to get a little greedier with the Emblazoned Golem, thinking like I can find other colors of mana, I can hit more land drops, but I think I could have played it out as like a 4/5 or something there, so it probably would have been just better to do that. And then opponent plays a 6/3, which is pretty threatening. And so, yeah, I think at this point, yeah, I'm still just prioritizing double spelling, which is reasonable, I think. And now we get to attack for 1 in the air. I don't even know whether I was thinking of looting with this Thought Career, because I have 3 spells in hand, so it doesn't seem like it would be necessary. Opponent does this on upkeep, by the way. They're setting up their draw with the Scry, which is kind of neat. I have a feeling I did choose to loot here, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, I think. Like maybe I was trying to find some kind of removal spell. So let's see what the opponent decides to do here. Looks like, I think they make a pretty funny play. They're going to Slave of Bolus my 0/1. So they just want to get that guy out of the way for the 6/3. And sure enough, I do, lose the 0/1 blocker versus the 6/3. Okay, looks like I decided not to loot, which was good. I was hoping I didn't loot there. Oh, and then here I think what I decide to do is try to trade Thunderheads for the 6/3. So I'm going to pump such that I have 3 mana open to try to make that blocker. And if the opponent does have a removal spell, I fall to 1 life, which isn't the end of the world. But it's certainly super greedy to do things this way. But good news is the opponent just scoops. So that worked out pretty nicely. Yeah, so not perfect play here, but you guys can already get a sense of like maybe how many moving parts there are in this deck with the looters and Bouncelands and DRS. Just so many like activated abilities, costs that you have to watch out for. Really, really cool deck. And I like that it was so difficult to play. Like, if this deck were easy to play, then, I don't know, it wouldn't have been nearly as fun, I think. But yeah, we just get to run it back here after pretty convincing game one, handily beating a Wrath. And yeah, so now we have Bounceland on the draw, which kind of looks like we're going to have to discard to hand size, which is not ideal, but we do find the planes. And that's one of the really funny things about these hybrid cards. Like, Esper Stormblade is in my deck because it looks like it costs blue-black, but sometimes you just top deck the planes, you know? So I believe now, oh yeah, oh, here we go. So the opponent has Thopter Foundry and Pentad Prism. I can't Dismantling Blow the Thopter Foundry because they can just like sack the Prism and sack it in response, and then, you know, they just made 2 flyers, and I just played a card that didn't do anything. Now the opponent plays this Infect, Mind Control, Corrupted Conscience, and I still have this Dismantling Blow, but the opponent has 1 mana left on their Pentad Prism, which means if I go for the Dismantling Blow on the Corrupted Conscience to get my thing back, they can just sack my artifact creature in response. So pretty convenient for them that the creature they stole happens to be one they can sacrifice, for sure. So I'm just trying to figure out what to do here. I decide I'm going to play Volcano Imp because my plan next turn is just to play Austere Thrall plus another Bounceland. I might have played the Thrall first, but I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to play more Bouncelands, so I'm not going to have mana for the activation. Fortunately, opponent kind of spews removal on a 2/2 flyer, and now the Thrall is a little more likely to survive. Then they play their Hill Giant. I'm already up to 6 poison, so getting poisoned here pretty quickly. And yeah, so I think this turn, yeah, that's right. So we get to have this sick board state where we play our 3rd Bounceland, pick up the planes, you know, take 1 to mana burn to cast the Deathrite, and we're going to take another 1 to mana burn to activate this Austere Thrall. I think that was the opponent sacking the Pentad Prism to the Thopter Foundry, and I think that was a punt on their part. Probably, well, actually, no, it's after this turn. So, I mean, I don't know what their deck composition is exactly, but it doesn't really make sense to me to leave the Thopter Foundry in play forever. Like, at some point you should just sacrifice it to itself, I think. Like, I don't think I've shown them Dismantling Blow or anything, so it doesn't really make sense for them to play around that. We did tap the Infect dude, by the way. We didn't want to go to 9 poison. And I can't really Consume Spirit here effectively yet, which kind of sucks. The opponent sacks their Mycosynth Wellspring, which is a pretty good reason to have Thopter Foundry in your deck, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's where I think they should have sacked the Foundry to itself. Because on the surface, it's not doing anything more than that. I mean, I guess you could sack the Wagon too if you wanted to. Maybe you would sack this Cloak, but I think, you know, as soon as the Foundry doesn't seem to be producing any more value, it's time to just ditch that thing. So we tap the Infect dude, and now it has Shroud, so we won't be tapping it again anytime soon. But we are able to gain some life here with the DRS, which is pretty nice. And I think now the plan is going to be to Consume Spirit, but this is where it's like, how do you even like tap the lands for this? Like, what is this? Like, look at this board state. I think I figure out a way to do it here, though. I think I realize I'm going to have a green floating after all this. Or do I not? Do I cast the Consume Spirit? Oh, yes, I do, because before the opponent had a green up so they could sort of protect their Kavu, but now they don't. Yeah, so we're going to do this. We're going to have a green floating after it resolves, and that means we can activate DRS at sorcery speed, exile the creature we just killed. Now we have planes untapped. So the lines with this deck are just totally insane. Like, every single turn is like a puzzle with the lands. It's so crazy. The opponent gets to hit me to 9 poison here, so we're on the brink of death. And that means it's finally time to go for this Dismantling Blow. And so I have 2 choices here. I can play Dismantling Blow unkicked, which I think is correct, and then just play the Frontline Sage, develop that as well. Or I can go for the greedy high upside play of the opponent not realizing they can sack my creature to their Thopter Foundry, and that means that we're going to draw 2 cards when Dismantling Blow tries to resolve. So the opponent does sack, what was that, War Wagon probably? Just trying to make some more flyers. And then now on upkeep we decide to do this, and we needed to, I think, pass priority there on their end step, hoping that they would sack Foundry to itself. I think they probably only had 1 mana available, so I don't think that they could do that and sack the wagon. But anyway, here I already mentioned I go for this super greedy high upside thing, and after tanking for a bit, the opponent just lets it resolve. So I think they didn't realize that they could sack that, and then here I gain my 2 life, and now we're kind of sitting pretty. They get to re-equip their cloak, of course. We get to tap the thing that they try to equip to, but bats with 1 black mana up now means that they can't attack. We also have the 3/2 flyer that we just regained control of. So now we're in this pretty commanding position, which is perfect, and just trying to figure out what the best way is going to be to kill them. I am at 9 poison, so if they somehow have anything with infect or give anything infect, I do pretty much lose on the spot, so I have to watch out for that. I have a nice attack for 4 there, thanks to Exalted. Plan is to leave the bat back in case we want to block some Thopters. We might even have more life to gain with this DRS, I don't remember. Or we could be at the point where we start making the opponent lose life. But regardless, they decide to chump attack with Thopter, which I guess if their only out is to pressure my life total, it probably makes a lot of sense. I think what I did there is I clicked the DRS, tried after clicking the Rot Farm, thinking that, well, since I'm already floating green-black, I'll try to gain life if gaining life is an option, and if gaining life isn't an option, then I'll just make the opponent lose life. So another kind of funny sequencing thing there. And then, yeah, the plan here is just Dead Ringers. Not quite as impressive as game 1, but we still get to get a couple threats off the board. And then I think, yeah, we just go for this alpha, or no, this isn't right. I think I end up, I leave the DRS back, because at this point we're just trying to race. We're just trying to get them as quickly as possible. We do have a Plains untapped. I don't think that there was a way around that. I don't think that with any different mana payments I could have avoided kind of wasting, quote unquote, that white mana, but still. Okay, opponent has Seal of Fire here. We're going to make them lose a couple life. And then, I think I start just with the Divination. Choose to target myself. I don't remember why. I think I was thinking that since the opponent's playing black, maybe they could have some way to interact with their graveyard. Just like probably my best chance to win is not by putting any weird unknowns into the situation like that. So they get to sort of time walk me here with the Seal of Fire, which is kind of annoying. Makes me wish that I just attacked a little more aggressively. It probably would have been correct to do that as well. And it looks like I'm tapped out here, but I actually have at least a land or 2 in the graveyard. So I now get to activate DRS to activate the Frontline Sage. So the crazy lines with this deck continue, and I could have activated the Thrall or the Bat, with this mana as well. So just really awesome stuff. And then loot away a land, which is now another DRS activation, exiling lands, that is. Opponent has to block that, and then I decide not to pay life because they're currently taking lethal. And then they show me this card, which is pretty darn crazy. 5 damage to any target, so they were almost able to lethal me there. They could have put me to 1. But I wouldn't really have gone to 1 because if I were using my brain, even if there were no creatures in the graveyard, I could sack something to the Cathari to put something into the graveyard to then activate the DRS to gain 2 life. So yeah, crazy lines continue, and that's match number 1. Alright, here's round 2, and unfortunately for me, I am paired versus Ekin, or Ekin maybe. Absolute crusher on Magic Online. I decide here I'm going to keep Whale of the Nim with the Serum Visions versus Plains, thinking that white has a lot of 1 toughness creatures, so it's pretty likely to be live. Sure enough, they show me an Iron Mirror, so it looks like this Whale of the Nim is going to be pretty good, or at least has the potential to be. Unfortunately, we have to discard to hand size to set up our mana on turn 2, but our hand is looking decent. Opponent plays Court Hussar, which is a pretty scary card. I'm not going to just straight up Dismantling Blow this mirror. I don't think that they necessarily have any red mana in their deck, so it's kind of just a 2 mana like wastes, I guess. It's a 1/1. And sure, like ramping is good, but I do have the whale, so I'm gonna try to get value out of it. Opponent here plays Airy Mystics, I think. And this is where things start to get a little bit ugly for me. They find a Selesnya Signet, so now they can actually activate the Mystics. And then here's a turn where I think I probably just make a bunch of wrong decisions. I think maybe it's reasonable to attack with one thing here, but given my hand, I think I should be trying to play toward the late game. On the surface, I'm winning this race, so I attack for 6, but the opponent has this really specific combination of cards that just completely destroys me. And then here's another turn where I just totally mess up. So I'm thinking that I have Dismantling Blow to blow up the Tempered Steel, and then I have Whale the Nim to pretty much clear all the artifacts out of there after that. I guess they're all mirror. And if I wanted to do that, what I needed to do was chump with the Frontline Sage. And the reason that I needed to chump there is because now if I blow up this Tempered Steel, the creatures are going to go back to 1 power and 1 toughness, which means I won't be able to chump to prevent as much damage. And that's bad because, well, Whale deals 1 damage to each player. So here I'm looking at blocking 3 things. I get to use this Dismantling Blow, get rid of the Tempered Steel. So good thing I didn't spew the Dismantling Blow, but I did incorrectly choose not to chump block a turn before. So now I just loot, and it really doesn't matter what happens here. What did I choose to do here, by the way? I think my out, by the way, like I can still find land. And then if I find land, I think Dead Ringers kills the mirror, but yeah, I can't keep the whale because the whale just kills me, so decide to get rid of that, and then they play Sun-Touched Mirror. And I do... Oh wait, I said I needed to find land, but I actually already had the Dead Ringers. Problem is, even if I kill 2 things, you know, they still have 2 attackers to my 1 blocker. So really unfortunate loss there that I think would have been preventable with perfect play if I had figured out that I wanted to chump block so I could then use Whale of the Nim later. That would have required a good deal of foresight, but I also, like, I don't think it's out of my range to make that kind of play. I just needed to like think a little bit before I chose to do that. So this hand looks really good. I'm feeling, you know, like I'm going to be in a decent position to win this game just based on the opener. And then here, do I just choose to loot? I think I probably do. Yeah, because you can always just find Bounceland, and then you want to play 2-drop into Bounceland rather than 3-drop. We do decide to play 2-drop anyway, getting rid of that Mortis Strider, which is just not a very good card. And then the opponent now has a 4/3, but we find Plains, and we get to jam the Sonai Drake, which is going to give the Stormblade dude flying, and then hit the opponent for 6. So now, even though last game it was probably not advisable to race, it's kind of hard to imagine it going wrong for us here. I imagine I loot here, and then I think I'm just in this spot where it's like, well, I don't want to discard any of these cards. So I think I end up having to ditch the Bounceland, but I don't remember. It's so much better. Maybe I ditch the bats. It could make sense too. Sure. It's just so much better to... oh yeah, and I think I want to play Spellskite here first, but I'm trying to... Yeah. So it's like, how do I do this? It's like, I want to play Spellskite first and then play Bounceland, bouncing a black or white land or something, so I can hold up double blue for the Spellskite. The opponent has Blinding Beam. And so now my plan is, since I have this Spellskite, I can Brick Wall a 3/3. The opponent has a 4/3, but it's only got that 1 extra power because of the equipment. So I'm thinking if I just Dismantling Blow the equipment, suddenly my Spellskite is acting more like a blocker than it was before. Not looting there because then Blinding Beam would just lock down my Thought Career. Want to have a little more flexibility for later, like after I kick this Dismantling Blow. I think I do this now, so if the opponent has a counterspell, I don't get wrecked if I choose to block. Spellskite not very good versus counterspells, most of them. And so yeah, we do get to soak up the damage. Opponent now plays a 4/4, which is really awkward for me. Oh yeah, and then there's another sequencing thing here coming up, which I didn't do ideally, or optimally, I should say. So what I wanted to do here was cast Fill with Fright first, because currently I have 6 mana. I want to loot into, yeah, I wanted to loot into untapped land there so I can go Fill with Fright into Frontline Sage, but I wasn't thinking about the interaction between Scry 2 and looting. So if I cast Fill with Fright first, looking for untapped land, then I can follow that up with Frontline Sage. And the reason that that's better than like doing whatever I'm doing this turn instead is because Frontline Sage allows me to attack through my opponent's 4/4, right? Currently I cannot do that. I just have like 6 power of evasion kind of sitting there. Good news is if I want to double block, I can do so quite safely because Spellskite can pretty much redirect most spells that would mess me up in combat, barring maybe something with Split Second or something that can only target a creature in combat. So we're waiting on the opponent here to discard to Fill with Fright, and yeah, sure enough, we do find that untapped island on top, but we don't need that thing anymore. So yeah, this turn we just get to pass, and I imagine the opponent was supposed to attack with the Stratozeppelid here, and I feel like they didn't. But I guess it depends on their hand. Oh yeah, they go for this Mind Culling, so I like Mind Rot them, and then they're like, alright, well I'm going to Mind Rot you, plus Divination, which is pretty funny. Here I draw Swamp, which I'm happy to loot away. And yeah, now we're in this position where it's going to be hard to imagine things really going wrong. Oh, and then yeah, I realize here that I have all the mana I need to do something really cool with Emblazoned Golem. So I go to cast it with Kicker, and I just go for the whole kit and caboodle here. Make an enormous Emblazoned Golem. It's like a 6/7 or whatever. Opponent goes for this attack. I decide, I could double block, but I'd rather just pay the 4 life. And we'll see what their follow-up is and whether or not it can block my 2 flyers. And I'm still like in really good shape in terms of gas because I have Serum Visions plus the looter. So here I find Dead Ringers. I think my play is going to end up being kill the 3/3 and kill the 1/2. And the reason I like that is because now my 3/1 flyer can attack with impunity. And yeah, I mean, it's just always nice to cast a Dead Ringers in this kind of board state. I don't know why it looks like I'm thinking about playing Bounceland, because you should always, play Bounceland there, but looks like I did play the Bounceland. And then here, yeah, we just get to send this stuff. We're tapped out, so no DRS activation this turn, but we can DRS effectively to gain 2 life to activate Spellskite if we need to. But I think, yeah, at this point my opponent just scoops. So this is like the raw power of my deck. But we'll see whether we're able to have a draw like that in game 3 here. So I think I end up deciding to board in Fume Spitter here over the Mortis Strider, which is a card that hasn't impressed me very much, and I just really don't want that thing in my deck. I figure the Fume Spitter is pretty good versus my opponent's Iron Mirror that I saw, and it can also work pretty decently as an onboard trick, or even kill something before Tempered Steel comes down. So we get this hand on the draw, which is a pretty good one in the sense that I can play turn 2 Bounceland without discarding the hand size. Oh, not to mention I top decked Fume Spitter, so I actually get to spend my mana super efficiently here. This is kind of the idea behind Bouncelands in my 1 mana cube. So we even get the cheeky attack with DRS here. Opponent's just not doing anything, and at this point I remember the 3 mana instant that makes 2 mirrors, so I'm just going to attack with the DRS. We have the Fume Spitter on board, so they're not going to be blocking with 2 mirror, and sure enough they do have the 2 mirror. So pretty much we just prevented ourselves from trading Fume Spitter with a mirror, and then later they force us to do that by playing the Tempered Steel. Good news is I do have Dismantling Blow, and I just top decked a Plains. So it looks like I'm going to be in good shape here to dismantle this tempered steel, try to ambush the mirror with the untapped DRS. We're going to pump once, nothing suspicious about that, but Ekin is a really good player and is going to remember random cards. You showed them in previous games, so note that they don't even consider attacking with the 3/3 here. Like, they know exactly what's up, which is obviously pretty bad for me. So I think we're casting Stormblade this turn. Oh no, I guess I decided I'm just not going to cast anything yet. Oh, I couldn't cast Stormblade. I didn't actually have any blue mana. Yeah, it's always hard to remember that kind of thing. So opponent gets a cheeky attack in for 2 in the air after exiling our thing, and we get to, well, exile their spell. And now we're going to try to figure out how to stabilize against their board. They have a bunch of small flyers, which is pretty rough for my deck, but the good news is on the surface the Stormblade blocks that stuff, and because I'm able to put 2 gold creatures into play, I don't get wrecked by like a bounce spell or something if I block with the Stormblade. So yeah, at this point we're just in a board stall, but I have DRS, so this board stall favors me somewhat. I also have Consume Spirit in hand, so eventually the plan is to Consume Spirit target their face, which could be a game-winning play. Like, it's pretty reasonable to expect that that would win a game, I think. But yeah, the board stall continues. Problem is the opponent plays Rusted Slasher, which is actually a card that's really difficult for me to answer. Like, they can just sack their Signet or whatever to keep that thing alive. So suddenly, despite thinking that I was in pretty good shape, I'm now not. There's an argument here for possibly casting the Consume Spirit. I don't remember how much damage it would have dealt. Looks like 5 damage probably, so I guess it's not worth it at that point. Oh yeah, and then the opponent has this sick Court Hussar draw. I guess they're not comboing with it yet. We're going to take our first 4 from this. And no more spells in the graveyard for DRS. Yeah, so I think I was I supposed to cast Consume Spirit there? I think I was. Yeah, I think I was, because if you cast Consume Spirit there, then the opponent falls to 4 life, and then I have Consume Spirit in the graveyard to exile the DRS, and then any spell from either player would basically kill them. I chose to add to the board instead, which I don't think is like super unreasonable or whatever, but we are gonna pay the price. The opponent has Silver Drake Court Hussar, which is super sick. This is where, like, you can probably convince me that I was supposed to play 16 lands with this deck, because now we're just getting like completely outvalued, which sucks. And I think I do decide to fire off the Consume Spirit here, and I still have a white mana activation for the Austere Thrall thanks to the plains. I'm considering targeting the Silver Drake, which is just going to beat me down. And I think that I'm partway through clicking here, and I realize that if I kill this Silver Drake, I don't have a realistic chance to win the game. So I just want to maximize my chances of winning, even if, those are pretty slight. So basically I would need to top deck. I don't remember what all I was thinking I could draw here that would keep me in this. I mean, Whale of the Nim would be one of my best draws for sure. Get rid of a bunch of 1/1s from the opponent, prevent that Rusted Slasher from hitting me, and add a spell to the graveyard that would kill them the following turn, but yeah, we'll see. I don't remember what I ended up drawing here. It was not Whale of the Nim, I'll tell you that. And then yeah, now that the opponent plays Sylvok Lifestaff, we're actually just dead. And the reason we're dead is because now they have Rusted Slasher plus Sylvok Lifestaff, and any hope I had of burning them out now doesn't work anymore. They have this Blinding Beam, have a huge attack, and I do actually draw the Whale of the Nim. Wow. I didn't realize that I drew like the best card in my deck like a turn late. Bummer for sure, but not really too much that can be done. So just gonna like main phase this, and then of course promptly die to the opponent like comboing off here. So unfortunate for sure. There's an argument for, I could have maybe played this out, right? Maybe there's a way I could have played it out, but realistically I can never win this with tight play from the opponent. Alright, so here we are for round number 3. We've got a pretty underwhelming hand on the play here for game one, but that's okay. We have some nice mana, and we do top deck that Grimclaw Bats, so we're going to be able to dump a bunch of mana into this thing as long as we aren't drawing too many spells. But we do find one more spell here. We're not going to add the Darksteel Mirror to the board just yet. Not when we can get some nice Bats activations, try to punish my opponent for their slow start here. You can always play the Darksteel Mirror later, but you can't always get damage in later necessarily. Alright, opponent plays a 2/2 flyer. We can attack through that guy pretty easily. We can also develop our Volcano Imp. Missing red for it at this point, which means I'm not going to be able to eat the fairy in combat just yet. Planning on using the Thunderheads, and all of a sudden there's a better use of the Thunderheads. Opponent plays a 3/3 flyer. We're going to want to eat that. So at this point, I think I probably attack with the Bats. Yeah. And the opponent has the option of blocking here if they would like to. We can pump 3 times. I think I should just pump once here, but it looks like I do end up pumping twice. If I pump just the once, then I can play Deathrite Shaman here this turn too. But nothing wrong with kind of sandbagging my spells too, like I mentioned before with the Darksteel Mirror. Try to get in the damage while I can, and I do manage to trade the Thunderheads here for the front half of the Sphinx. Opponent plays a Serpent, and now it's time to deploy that Darksteel Mirror. I do control an island, so their thing is going to be able to attack. Yeah, it looks like I just make this attack. I think pumping just once. And yeah, we now get to play 2 creatures here, leaving the Thought Career in hand, playing another Bounceland. And this is nice because it does allow me to develop red mana for the Volcano Imp. Another option here was just not pumping and playing the Darksteel Mirror and the Thought Career. That kind of thing is pretty close. I think it's not clear to me which is better. Here the opponent leaves back their 2/2 flyer, which is interesting because it's not really doing much here as I untap with red mana and my ability to pump the Bats. I think it's probably a little bit better for them if they just send in the 2/2 flyer, but not sure what they're holding in hand. And so yeah, I do get to send in either one here if I would like. I think I end up sending in the Imp. Yeah, just deciding, well, I don't want to lose any more life pumping my Bats, so I'll just hit you for the 2. And I can develop my Thought Career here, make you lose some life from the Deathrite Shaman as well. Opponent cycles a Glass Dust Hulk, so maybe missing some white mana over there. Not sure exactly what's going on. Alright, and they do crash in with the Serpent as well here. So I go down to 5. I go for this tap on tap thing, which kind of hard to know exactly what that could mean in the Chaos format. But I draw Dead Ringers here, which is just the absolute nuts. Opponent's sitting there, ironically, with 2 blue artifact creatures. If one of them was a colorless creature and the other one was blue, then this wouldn't work. But unfortunately, they're templated in the same kind of funky Alara way. And yeah, we get to blow up both of them. Just send in some clowns here for an attack. Deathrite's gonna make them lose a couple life, and yeah, opponent sees the writing on the wall. And we go to game number 2 here. So after that game, I am feeling a little bit weak to the 4/5 Serpent, just being able to come in and attack me if the opponent's able to answer the Darksteel Mirror. So I think at this point I'm considering Mortis Strider going into the deck, and yeah, looks like I'm going to swap out that Fume Spitter for it, which I think makes sense. Our sideboard's very shallow here, which is why we're playing 17 lands in addition to, including all the bounce lands that we have, but there's still a little room for maneuverability, I think. And unfortunately here, it looked like we were setting up on the draw to have to discard to hand size, but fortunately we do find the blue source in time. The reason I mentioned discarding is because if we did play the bounce land on the previous turn, we would have had to discard, but Fortunately here we are able to play our Sage, get in our cheeky little Exalted attack, deploy our Volcano Imp. Opponent cracks their Bauble. And sure enough, they were missing white mana last game. And they now play a Cluestone, but it's turn 5, and the opponent only has 3 lands in play. So just an interesting thing to think about here. No need for the second island. We're going to play Deathrite Shaman. I think I picked up a swamp though. I mean, there's an argument for picking up the island. The reason I like the decision I made here is because I can still activate the Sage. I can pick up the island later if I want to, if the opponent plays like Steelclad Serpent or whatever. And yeah, we still have plenty of black mana if we draw Consume Spirit or whatever. Get our nice attack for 3 here with thanks to Exalted. And at this point I go for kind of a greedy, fun play, I think. I have a land in the graveyard that I've looted away, which means Deathrite can give me an extra mana. Opponent goes for this play, and I say, you know what, it's turn 6, you have 3 lands in play and a Cluestone. I'm just going to Dismantling Blow your, your Cluestone. We're actually going to lose a life here to Mana Burn as well, overtapped slightly. And yeah, in general, I think this kind of thing is not really wise, especially when the opponent's already shown me so many artifacts and potential targets for the Dismantling Blow. But you know, once you've already lost a match with a really sweet deck, sometimes you just want to make goofy plays and have fun. So that's kind of what the name of the game was here. And yeah, we get in an attack for 2 with Exalted. The opponent countered one of our flyers, we deploy another, and yeah, we're just really far ahead in terms of mana and resources, and yeah, that's going to be that. So unfortunately losing round 2 to number 3 on the leaderboard there, Ekin, who, yeah, as usual is some very stiff competition for us, but hope you enjoyed this draft. I thought the deck was really, really sweet, lots of fun. Hope you think so as well. And yeah, thanks for watching the video. We'll see you next time.